We are going to talk about the ETL testing and at the same time ETL testing as well as BI testing. Uh, Both the things we are going to understand. So the prerequisite is nothing but, so you should have a little bit of hands-on with respect to something like a HP Quality Center. If it is not there, so probably we'll install and we'll help you with the setup as well. And HP Quality Center, and if you know the software testing life cycle and what is a defects, what is the priority, severity of the defects and all those things, so that is enough for you to understand this training that it is there. So basically the skills that we are going to cover as part of this training is that since the SQL plays a very important role in a data warehousing testing, so first we'll talk about the basic SQL, and at the same time the advanced SQL also will be discussed as part of this. So when you talk about the basic SQL, we'll talk about the joins and we'll talk about the aggregate functions, and we'll talk about the set operators, and we'll also talk about the little bit of a DML, DDL and other database objects like a views and everything, and also the different analytical functions. Basically you'll have different analytical functions, and what do you mean by the what do you mean by the partitions and all those things also will be discussed as part of that. So these are the things, and then we'll talk about the next one is about the data warehousing basics. Basically we'll understand the data warehousing basics. We'll understand about what is ETL, what is BI and all those things we'll understand. And next thing is about data modeling. So we'll understand what is a fact table and what is a dimension table. All these things as well we'll discuss. And then we will talk about completely the ETL testing process. What are the different types of ETL testing and how do you do the ETL testing with Informatica. We are going to understand with respect to Informatica, we'll understand the complete ETL testing. And the next one is about the BI testing as well. So we'll understand the complete BI testing with respect to the OBIE. I'm going to show you how it is there. And at the same time, we are also going to learn a little bit on the basic UNIX commands with respect to that. And next thing is about the installation. So installation is basically we will set up the Informatica VM, which will consist of the Oracle database and the necessary tools to practice this one, that is your SQL developer. And you'll also have Informatica which is being installed so that you can get the navigation on the Informatica Power Center tool. So all those things which is there. And next thing in terms of since it is an online class, you'll get the recorded videos every day that will be provided, and once the class is completed we are going to send all these things, and the necessary all the materials, all the soft copies of the materials will be provided, and all the soft copies of materials will be provided for practicing SQL and for practicing the ETL testing and everything. All the soft copies will be provided and the recorded videos. So, and at the end we will also help you with a resume preparation, right? So resume preparation, and at the same time we'll also help you with a mock interviews if you require, and any kind of a mock interviews. And especially more than this, it is about the project explanation, what kind of project you have to keep for the interviews and how you need to explain about the project and everything which will be discussed. So so these are all the things about the training. So we'll just get started with what is ETL testing to understand. We'll get started with what is ETL testing and what is BI testing and all that we will get started. So I'm going to give you what kind of work that you have to do as an ETL tester, or what kind of work that you have to do as an BI tester, that we will do. We will understand that. So this is overall details about the training. In case if you have any generic questions as well, I'm going to answer all of them. I'm going to answer all of them after the training. So now let me just give you around 20 to 25 minutes of demo to make yourself comfortable to understand on the ETL testing and the BI testing. Right. So to get started, I want to get started from the very basic level to drive it from this one. So I would like to understand, what do you mean by the database? So any idea like what is database means? I need your inputs on the chat window. You don't need to really, unmute yourself and go ahead with it. So what do you mean by database? So any idea? So do you guys hear me? All of you found? Okay. So I got one answer. It's a collection of data. Very good. So collection of data, correct? So where do you store this data by collecting it? Where do you store the data? Okay, right. So you're going to store that in the form of tables, right? So storing the data or collection of data, this is called as a database. So in general, the database is called as a DBMS. So DBMS is called as database management system, and basically these DBMS eventually called as an RDBMS as well. So RDBMS stands for a relational database management system. Relational database management system. Why we call the databases as relational database management systems? Any idea? Why do we call it as a RDBMS?
Yeah, tables are interconnected to each other.
Yes. So basically the reason is like when you store the data in the different tables, there will be a relationship which exists between one table to the another table. That's why we call this as a relational DBMS. So what kind of different RDBMS products which you have? How many? We have different vendors who are supplying the RDBMS products, right? So what databases that you heard about? What are the different databases that you heard about? Okay, MySQL, very good. So what else? Oracle, yes. Oracle is another database. What else? Oracle, okay. What else? Teradata, yes. Teradata is another database which is predominantly used in the data warehouse. Okay. SQL Server, yes. SQL Server is also another database, right? So what else? Postgres SQL, yes, very good, interesting. Yeah, Postgres. SQL, yes. What else? MySQL we have got, yes. DB2 from IBM, yes. Oracle, Teradata, SQL Server, DB2, Sybase. Anybody heard about it? Sybase, right? And also you heard about Greenplum. Greenplum is a database. And Netezza from IBM, yes. Netezza. And what else? Informix is a database. So likewise, you have various databases which are available. So do you agree with me when I say all these databases will store the data in the form of a tables? Yes or no? All these databases?
Yes.
Yes, right. So these are all will store the data in the form of a tables. So now, how do you store the data in the table? Or which language will helps you to store the data in the tables? That is nothing but your SQL. So what do you mean by SQL? SQL stands for a structured query language.
Query language.
This is a language which is invented by the IBM in way back in 1970s, So using this SQL is a kind of a universal. You can say using this SQL, I can store the data in MySQL, I can store the data in Oracle, I can store the data in SQL Server, I can store the data in DB2 and wherever I want. So this SQL is basically used to, store the data in tables and update the data in tables, and it also helps you to read the data from tables, right? So read the data from tables, whatever we have, and it will also help you to manipulate and then create different types of objects, anything that you can do it. So SQL is like, it has a different set of commands which helps you to perform all the operations in the database. So basically, let me just give you the high level overview how the SQL is being classified into, how the SQL is being classified. So SQL basically classified into 5 different types, okay, 5 different language types you can say. One is like the DML, right? Uh, DML, so which is called as a data manipulation language, and another is called as a DDL, which is called as a data definition language,
The
right?
definition language.
Right, yes, very good. So DDL, and another is called as a DRL, which it's called as a data retrieval language, and TCL. Okay, let's let DRL, data retrieval language, and similarly you have a TCL, which is a transaction control language. So to control all the transactions, so we use a TCL, and another thing is called as a DCL, which is called as data control language, which you have. So basically your SQL is being classified into different types. So each type carries the different set of commands. So when you say DDL, first of all, to define the object, as it names, like creating a tables, altering the tables or different type of objects, and drop, truncate, these are all the different types of DDL commands what we have. And this is to define the different types of objects, remove the objects from the database. And the DML is like adding a data and all those things, insert, uh, update, and delete. So these are all the different types of merge. These are all the different types of DML statements what we have. And when you talk about the DRL talks about the select statement, so which helps you to read the data from your tables and everything. So when you talk about the TCL, commit and the rollback. So basically the commit is more like saving the data to the database, and rollback is like undoing the changes. So when you talk about the DCL, it's more like a grant and revoke. So these are all these commands anyway we are going to learn. I'm just trying to give you the SQL is nothing but the different set of commands which we have, which helps you to manipulate, read, write, all these kind of things. You can do it on the database. So basically why we are talking about the database and the SQL is because in a data warehousing environment, it is important. It is very important about the databases. So what do you mean by data warehouse? What do you mean by data warehouse? Any guesses? What is a data warehouse?
Collection of different databases.
Okay. Collection of different databases. Okay. What else? Right. So when you say the data warehouse, I would say the data warehouse is nothing but the database. Okay. So a database which stores the data for analysis purpose, right? Which stores the data for analysis, that is called as a data warehouse when you see that. So basically you can call it as it's a collection of data from the different applications or collection of data from the different transactional systems, which are so called as an OLTP system, and which is used for analysis or a decision making. So you can call this also as a decision making. So when you talk about building a data warehouse for any customer or data warehouse for any customer, you need to choose any one of these databases as my data warehouse. So when you talk about data warehouse, I can choose Oracle database as my data warehouse, or I can choose Teradata as my data warehouse. I can choose Sybase, or I can choose Netezza, or I can choose Informatics. Any database can be your data warehouse. So when you go to the ETL tester job, or when you go to the data warehousing tester job, you can see any of the database. I mean, they can use any of the database, but you should, if you are much comfortable with SQL, any other database also, you should be able to work with it, right? Now, let's talk about the understanding of understanding of transactional systems and understanding of what is a ETL and what is a BI, which means. So I call all the transactional systems as an OLTP system. What do you mean by OLTP? OLTP is nothing but online
On the
transaction
pre-processing
processing
system.
system. So this is called as an OLTP. So basically, why we call all these systems as a transactional system? Okay, I'll come back to that. So what kind of applications you call it as an OLTP? Any guesses? Okay, so what kind of applications are called as a OLTP? So which are used for day-to-day operations is called as a OLTP, right? So which are used for day-to-day operations. So when you talk about the example of what are the applications, any guesses on this? Okay. Can I call ATM withdrawal application as a transactional application? Yes or no? Or
Yes.
okay. Can I call the internet banking system or whatever we have, can I call this as a transactional application?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go and understand. Can I call the e-commerce applications like Amazon.com, eBay.com as a transactional applications?
Yep, correct.
Okay. So can we talk about the travel related applications like Yatra.com or Travel
Yeah.
Yari? So all these called
Yep.
as a transaction. Or when you go to the telecom domain, where you actually go to Vodafone website or a Airtel website, if you're familiar with the telecom providers in India, so you go and pay the bills, right? A system which you are using to pay the bills, that do you call this as a system which is being used to understand? Do you call that as a transactional system? Yes, right? Okay.
No.
These are no. Why? Why no? Okay. It's also a transactional system, right? So what do you mean by transaction? First of all, I'm saying that all these are all the transactional application. What do you mean by transaction in an ATM application? Withdrawing the money, depositing the money, that is called as a transaction. What is a transaction in internet banking? What is a transaction? Transferring the funds from one account to other account, or a reversal of the cancelling the transaction which is being scheduled, all these kind of a thing. What is a transaction in an e-commerce application? What do you mean by transaction in an e-commerce application? Any idea? No? Okay. So in an e-commerce application, like booking a ticket, or purchasing or placing an order online is called as a transaction. What is a transaction in Yatra.com? Booking a ticket or booking a hotel is called as a transaction. Paying a bill is a transaction. You go and pay your postpaid bill, or you go and recharge your mobile. So all these kind of things are called as a transaction. So when you say OLTP systems, these are used for a day-to-day operations and not for analytical purpose. Not for analytical purpose which we use. So this is more about the transactional oriented applications. So basically, when you want to build a data warehouse, we are saying that we are going to collect the data from a transactional system and put it into the data warehouse. Okay, let's take your any bank, or let's take Amazon itself as one of the application, and then we do it. Okay, let's say Amazon has the different kind of websites, right? So they have Amazon.in, which is intended for Indian customers, and you have another one called as Amazon.com, which is for US customers, and you also have another one. Let's say you have Amazon.eu, which is intended for Europe customers, right? So these are all the different transactional applications which it is there, and every day there will be a new transactions which happens, right? New transactions happens here in the Amazon.in and Amazon.com. So if the US customers will go and purchase any uh, goods here, that will be recorded over here, and all these are all the transactions. Every day the new transactions will happen. So suppose, let's say this data is being recorded in the SQL Server database, and assume that this data is completely captured in a maybe Amazon Web Service system or Amazon any other, let's say an Oracle database, and Amazon.eu is being captured in, let's say, DB2 database, and they also have a data which is being stored in the form of some XML files or a flat files where their order booking data or a customer related information is being stored. Now, the transactional data which is being captured on a day-to-day basis is being distributed across the different applications which we have. When we talk about ETL process, the process is nothing but the process of integrating the data from these transactional systems into a single centralized database, that is called as a Teradata. That is called as a warehouse. So I'm choosing Teradata as my data warehouse. So the process of integrating this is called as a ETL. So what do you mean by ETL? ETL stands for extraction of data. Extraction is nothing but the reading of the data. And T stands for a transformation. Transformation is nothing but the modifying the data. And L stands for a load. Load is nothing but a inserting of a data. So this process is called as an ETL process, or you can even term this as a data integration process. So to integrate the data from all these different applications, whatever you have, into one single centralized database for analysis purpose can be done by using any of the ETL tools. So you have hundreds of ETL tools which are available in the market. So your Amazon Amazon client can do by using any of the ETL tools. So let's say few among them is about your Informatica Power Center, let's say IBM Data Stage, and you have Ab initio is another ETL, and you have SSIS, SQL Server Integration Service, and you have ODI, Oracle Data Integrator, you have BODS, Business Objects Data Services, and likewise you have open source tools like Pentaho, and you have open source uh, this, right, Talent. So all these are different ETL tools which you have. So when you talk about the BI tools, we'll come back to that. Though the process of this is integrating the data into data warehouse is your ETL tools what we have. So when we talk about the data warehouse, this data warehouse, once you store the data, it is actually used for an analysis purpose. So how do you analyze the data? Analysis of a data is done by using the different BI tools. Analysis of a data is done by using a different BI tools what we have. So when we talk about the different BI tools, how do these tools we use to analyze the data? These tools will read the data from a warehouse and represent that data in the form of a report. So when you say report, it can be shown in the form of a pie chart uh, and pie chart, and another is called as a bar graph, and it can be uh, line graph, or it can be represented in a tabular format. See, we are going to represent the data for analyzing the analysis. They can represent the data by using the any type of a report that is called as a BI report, which is called as. So these, when you talk about the different BI tools, again you have a lots and lots of things which are available. So you talk about Oracle BI, which is like a OBIE. You talk about the Tableau, and then you have a ClickView, and you have a Cognos MicroStrategy, Cognos, and you have a MicroStrategy as one other BI tool. So which is like, these are all the different BI tools. So this way you will analyze. So when you talk about the data warehousing testing, data warehousing, it's a combination of ETL plus BI together is called as a DWBI, which is called as a data warehousing and business intelligence. So now you understand that the integration of a data is done by the ETL tools and the generation of the reports is done by the BI tools. So what do you mean by ETL testing here, and what do you mean by the BI testing here? That is what we are going to understand. So let me give you a clear picture. So using the ETL tools, your ETL developers will develop the different kind of ETL jobs or the ETL components. Okay. So using those ETL components, every day the new data, whatever is being added to the transactional systems, is being integrated into the data warehouse, So now as an ETL tester, what you need to do is the ETL components which are built by the ETL developers is integrating the right data into the data warehouse or a wrong data. That data we are going to validate. So these ETL jobs, every day it will run in a production environment because the new data will keep on getting added to your transactional system, and your ETL jobs will keep integrating the data, and those jobs we have to validate with the help of a SQL. So how do you validate the data? So let's take a simple example. So with the help of a SQL only you are going to validate. So when you talk about ETL testing, the process of validating the data which is integrated by using ETL jobs, that is called as an ETL testing. So how the ETL testing is done? By using an SQL. So we'll come back to the question, or do we have any automation tools for doing the ETL testing? We'll come back to that question. So how do you validate it, and how the ETL testing is classified into? So ETL testing is basically classified into smoke testing, and you call this as a functional testing, and there are things like system testing or an integration testing, and we also talk about the performance testing, and there are scenarios like wherein we have to do some kind of a regression testing, all these. So ETL testing is classified into this many types of testing, and we are going to validate all of them with the help of an SQL and some with the help of a tool and the validation of a data. So let's talk about the functional testing predominantly. So that will give you the clear picture at this point of time. What do you mean by an ETL test? Okay. Let's take a simple example. Now in my Amazon.com, I have a table called as basically I have a table called as a customer table. Okay. So this customer table data which is there in my Oracle database is being integrated into another table called as a dim_customer, which is there in my warehouse. So the data is integrated by the program or a ETL component called as a P1. So program which is called as a P1, which it is there. Now I want to understand whether it is properly integrating a data or not. So what kind of validations that you do? So assume that your customer table has a different columns. Okay, I'm just giving you a simple example. Your customer table has a columns like customer ID, and you have a customer name, let's say the location of the customer and all those things which we have, and the email of the customer, what you see when you do that, email of the customer, what you see. So when you talk about the customer ID, customer ID is more like 100. Let's say the customer name is, so just think that as a Karthik, and the location, let's say what you call it as, let's say Chennai, and you have that as a abc@abc.com or something like that. So abc@abc.com, what you see. So this is a data what you have, and this data is integrated into another target table called as a dim customer. So what kind of validations that you do? First thing in the functional testing, what we are going to do is about the count of records is matching or not. That is the first validation. So basically, first validation, when you say count validation, we'll go and understand how many records are there in the source system, and we'll go and understand how many records are there in the target, whether the count between both source and target is matching or not. When I say source, it is nothing but the customer table, and when I say target, that is nothing but the dim customer table. So we'll validate the data. How do you validate? I'll go and write a query in my source database, that is this Oracle system. I'll write a query and identify how many customers are there here and how many customers are there here. Both are matching, then my test case is passed. Else, there is a defect and I need to do that. So for doing all these kind of validations, you need to know the SQL. So basically you'll write a SQL query and understand with respect to that. So the next one is about the duplicate records in the target table. See, your ETL jobs are loading the data every day, it is fetching the data. There might be a case that your customer information might have been loaded twice or thrice in my table because of some glitch in the program what is being developed. So we are going to look for such kind of a duplicate things, whether there are any duplicates which are created, and then validate it or raise the defect if there is an issue. And similarly, when the data is being loaded into the target table, instead of complete Karthik, it is being loaded as this. This is the data, this is how the data is being loaded. Now, in the source you have the customer name like this, in the target it is being loaded as like this, which is a wrong. So this type of a data validation is called as a column level data validation. So you will compare each and every column in the source with the target, again with the help of SQL, and validate any of the column is being loaded as wrong or a null that you're going to verify in doing it. Right? So that is another validation which you do it. See, when your ETL job is loading, for some reason your email is not populated. So just assume that your email, instead of populating it as a ABC, it is not populated at all. Whereas in the source there is an email which exists for a customer, but it is not populated. So this kind of a thing is called as a null validation. So you're going to validate all the null values with respect to that. So that is another one which you see. So likewise, we'll test a different kind of a validation with respect to the transformation logic which is being implemented in the program P1. According to that transformation logic, we will validate the data between your source and the target. This is how you validate the ETL process. So this complete ETL process to validate, again I repeat, so you must know the SQL. That's why we are emphasizing more on the SQL before we proceed with the ETL testing process. So we will understand the complete ETL testing process by taking different examples, by taking a real-time project, and we will understand the complete ETL testing. In the ETL testing, you are going to understand how to navigate through the ETL Informatica tool, and how do we understand the different transformations or different programs in the ETL, and we will define. So in the ETL testing, to understand, we are going to understand around some 8 to 9 labs, I don't remember exactly, 8 to 9 labs we are going to implement to process and understand all the things. So that's the pretty much about the ETL testing process. So once the proper data is being integrated here, and now that data has to be validated, right? The data has to be validated, which is being represented in the reports. Then we'll talk about the BI testing. Again, the BI testing is also divided into functional, system, performance, and the regression testing. So the data here, suppose let's say the revenue of the India revenue is $100 million or $100 million, but when it is represented in the report, it is being represented as a $99 million, which is wrong. So it was supposed to be represented as 100, and now it is being represented as a 99 in a report, which is wrong. So this kind of a data validations also we will validate again with respect to the SQL, and then do the BI testing. So BI testing, we will validate the data what is being represented in the reports. In the ETL testing, we will validate the data that is being integrated from this one. So you're going to validate the data, different kind of ETL testing that you understand. it is like we'll understand the testing between the two Oracle tables. That is, I call this as a homogeneous testing. And the next one is about the flat file to relational table testing. We are going to understand. And also, we are going to understand on the heterogeneous testing. Basically, when you have two different types of a databases. So here, you have to validate the data between Oracle database and the Teradata. So how to validate? So all these scenarios are covered as part of a ETL testing process. Again, when we understand about the BI testing is completely driven by using the OBIE tool. I'm going to show you the walkthrough on the OBIE 11G tool, and we will understand with respect to that as well. So this is the overall picture about the course, like how the ETL testing is being driven and how the BI testing is being driven. So overall the course duration is going to be for 25 hours, including the SQL, right? 20 to 25 hours we are going to cover, and including the UNIX commands. So basic UNIX commands are also required for a ETL tester. We are also going to understand the basic UNIX commands and how to test the UNIX shell scripts and how to understand the UNIX shell scripts. All those things will be validated with respect to ETL plus BI process. So this is I just tried to give you the simple understanding on the ETL testing and the BI, but when we go to the course, I'll go in depth and then give you the end-to-end understanding of the ETL process, whatever we have. So this is about the ETL and the BI testing process. Now, if you have any questions related to this, and the syllabus anyway, I think I'm going to share it with you. You'll get the syllabus from the respective coordinators, whoever has actually coordinated with you. And I think I can even go through that quickly. Yeah, I mean, these are the predominantly the major things which is being there. The syllabus copy is not properly updated, but it has all these stuff which we are going to cover. So for SQL, probably we'll spend some 10 hours, right? And for data warehousing basics and data modeling, we'll spend 3 hours. And ETL testing, again, it will go for 10 to 12 hours. And BI testing for 1.5 hours. And then the basic UNIX commands, again, half an hour to 1 hour we'll spend, and 45 minutes to 1 hour. So overall, it goes for a 25 hours on this. So you're going to also receive all the artifacts, like basically how to prepare a test plan, what kind of a defects generally you come across in a ETL and the BI project. So I'm going to share the sample BRDs in a ETL testing projects or a BI testing projects, and I'm going to talk about the test plan, test strategy documents, how to prepare. So all these things as well I'm going to share. So all these things will be provided as part of a training when we do that. So this is what is overall details on your ETL and the BI testing process. So if you have any questions related to that, I can try and answer one by one now. Right. So you can go ahead with your questions if you have any one by one. So my system, I can even just show you. This entire curriculum, as I said, it is being integrated with a sample ETL project. We are going to test the retail ETL project which is there, and we are going to understand the programs, and I'm also going to show you how to navigate through the ETL tool. I mean, this is your Informatica tool. You're going to understand how to use a designer, workflow manager, and workflow monitor. And so let's, I mean, if you want to log in as well, so I can just log in and then show you how the mapping will be there and what you have to understand and all those things. So this is your designer tool. Basically, sometimes in some projects you'll have access to the designer tool and the Informatica tools. In some projects you may not have access. You'll just go through this tool and then understand with respect to that. So these are all the sample mappings. So let me take a simple example. The ODS invoice, or maybe the ODS invoice. So here it's a simple example where they are integrating data from the invoice to the ODS invoice table. Now as a tester, you need to validate the data between the invoice and the ODS invoice table, which it is there. So this is how the sample mapping and how we need to do everything. We'll go through that. Yes, I have a couple of questions here. What technical knowledge we need to know to excel in the ETL testing apart from the SQL? See, if you know SQL, 60% of your job is done. 60, not 60, more than 70% of a job. How comfortable you are in SQL, and that drives you even in understanding the Informatica as well, or any other ETL tool. So if you are making yourself much comfortable in the SQL, and your 70 to 80% of the job is done in the ETL testing. So you need to focus really good on the SQL, and then just a navigation on the Informatica and what kind of transformations are there to answer the questions. And you need to understand a few artifacts like a source to target column mapping sheet and some test plan how to prepare. All these things, if you know, that is enough for you to excel in the ETL testing. Right. So the next one is how much practical focus on this training program. See, I would definitely say that we hardly spend a time in discussing the theoretical things, maybe some 2 to 5 hours, not more than that. Remaining all the other things are practically driven. Each and everything, I'm going to write a query, execute a query, show you the result, how it works. Each and everything is a completely a practical approach. There is nothing which is driven based on the PPT here. It's completely driven interactive practical sessions which we are going to have throughout the training. So whenever I say 25 hours, 21 hours you'll have only practicals. So 25 hours only the online classes. We'll have around 35 hours of the practical classes, which includes SQL, ETL testing and the BI testing and the basic UNIX commands. So this is how you can still do that and refer. So this is more about the things what we have on the practical approach. So what else? Any questions? Any other questions? So I want you guys to clarify all the things, even if it is a silly thing. Okay, can we expect enough practice to be an expert in SQL? Yes. We are, basically by understanding all these things, yes, you can consider it as more than moderate level. I mean, you can be a practitioner level SQL things you're going to learn. So analytical functions, partitions, database links, different types of advanced subqueries we are going to understand. Yes, you can consider yourself as not as an expert, but you can say more than practitioner level you're going to understand. So we are going to understand about the inline queries and everything. So that gives you the better comfortability on the SQL part. So we have such hands-on labs which are being defined. So if you want me to show, I can even show you the complete hands-on labs on the SQL as well. So when you go here, completely only for an SQL, we have complete this 11G fundamentals thing, and wherein for each and every chapter we have a separate hands-on exercise which drives you to understand each and every concept here in the SQL part. We are going to share this document, and that helps you to understand. So at the end of each chapter, you're going to have the practice exercises and all those. So if you just say, let's say after this exercise, after this chapter, for each and everything you'll have a practicals. Okay, let me just go through and show you the sample hands-on exercises, and the answers for that also will be provided as part of that. So this is more about this practice to each and everything will be provided, right? So any other questions? Okay. Now my question is, did you guys understand what is BI testing?
Yes.
Yes, you guys understand?
Yes.
Very good, right?
Yep.
All right. So this is called as a BI and the ETL testing. Okay, so we go in deep and understand. So in terms of a practical knowledge, so don't worry, if you want any level of practicals you require, we can create that and then we can help you to do that. There are enough practicals which are already planned, and if you still want anything as well, we can even do that and drive it that session.